Hi, welcome to Politics Now. I'm Mark Skonecki. Today we're going to be talking about the intense competition that's emerging for people who want to be delegates to the convention, the Republican convention in Cleveland this summer. We're going to meet a Central Florida superfan of Donald Trump. We'll have social media with Kayla O'Brien, and finally this week's winner and loser with Scott Maxwell. But first, let's take a look at the headlines. On Tuesday, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton scored resounding victories in the New York primaries, and both of them are now saying that they feel like their races are getting close to being wrapped up. The Orlando City Council this week gave a preliminary approval to a new law that would decriminalize possession of small amounts of marijuana. A final vote on that measure is scheduled for May 9th. And finally, the Republican race for the United States Senate here in Florida is starting to heat up, featuring candidates like Lieutenant Governor Carlos Lopez Cantera, Congressman Ron DeSantis and David Jolly, and businessmen Todd Wilcox and Carlos Baruf. So let's start first now with a look at why all of a sudden a ticket to the Republican National Convention is a hot one. Steve Lemongello, our politics reporter, is here to talk to us about this. So what's going on?
Well, sure. So they're over the past few months since the primary, they've been choosing the delegates to the Republican National Convention. And that's important this year because for the first time there could be a contested convention for the first time in 40 years. If Donald Trump does not reach 1,237 delegates on the first ballot, then that'll go to a second ballot. And what that means is a lot of the delegates will be free to vote for whoever they want. Now in Florida, you're free to vote for whoever you want on the fourth ballot. So who actually goes to the convention is going to be very important.
Right, and you've talked to some of these people, I imagine. What are they saying about what their strategies are and what they're going to do?
Well, sure. Well, the way it's picked is that each congressional district in Florida gets 3 delegates, and they're chosen by county chairs, county committeemen, county committee people. And a lot of them just essentially choose themselves. You're not chosen because like, oh, I'm for Ted Cruz, I'm for Donald Trump. You're chosen for like, what have you done for the party for the last years, decades.
For example, somebody like Rich Crotty, who's been a Republican here in Orange County, he's going, right?
That's right. He's going to his 9th convention. First one was in Miami Beach in '72. He was a tier guest, and he said that he's a fan of Kasich. Now he didn't say he was going to vote for Kasich on the 4th ballot, but he said what a lot of people have said who are delegates, that it's too soon to say. It's like 3 months out. We don't know what the delegate situation is going to be between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. One Trump supporter who's actually a delegate says that she doesn't think it's going to get to 4 ballots, but again no one knows right now.
Well, and so what do you think the fallout of this is going to be after it's all over with?
Well, UCF professor Susan McManus, one of the things she said, the thing she's hearing so much about recently is people did not have any idea what the delegate selection process was. They were just sort of shocked that the people just thought, oh, well, you win a primary, you get those delegates. But it doesn't actually work that way. You're bound for a certain number of votes, and after that, you're free. And even the delegate selection process is going to be, people didn't know apparently the Trump campaign didn't realize that these are chosen in meetings in each district, not just the Trump does not get to select 99 people as like his campaign manager said the other day. So what she said is that there's going to be a lot of changes being made in both parties for the delegate selection process going forward.
Yeah, it does. It's been a wild election so far. It's going to keep getting wilder.
That's right.
It's going to be a fun summer. Thanks, Steve. We appreciate that. Okay. Let's move on to our next story now. We have found, after a long and tedious search, well, maybe not tedious search, but I know it was a thorough search, Kayla O'Brien has found a Trump superfan here in Orlando.
I did. It was awesome to meet him. He owns a auto repair shop in South Orlando, and he has a giant board that he made himself to support Donald Trump. So I interviewed him, and we're going to play that video so you can meet him too.
Started out, I liked Trump.
That's putting it mildly.
I wanted to become involved myself, but it was long before the campaign office got here, so I had signs made.
And he put them all over his auto repair shop in Edgewood.
If I'm out there putting the signs out in the morning, beep, 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 thumbs up, constantly people coming in, wanting to participate somehow.
There's no more left.
And since Trump's campaign started, Rick turned his auto body shop into a campaign headquarters, giving away over 5,000 bumper stickers and signs.
But not everyone is supportive.
The funny part is though when people try and take the sign, and a couple people have tried to take it, but I attached it to a cable, which might not be a good thing to tell everybody here, but it is rather funny watching them walk about 4 or 5 steps and then get pulled back because they don't know it's tethered.
But Rick says he understands those who oppose Trump.
It's slowed down since the primary is over. They don't understand that Mr. Trump's probably the best thing for them because they might not know it. By the time they get the cap and gown, there might not be a job left for them, because that's pretty much what I'm seeing now with the young folks that come to my shop.
And Rick says his attraction to Trump stems from his platform on creating and keeping American jobs.
You abandon your stance. You know, I've been in business for 32 years, and I don't think there's anything ever comes to my shop that I put on a car or that I buy, and probably not even the clothes you and I are wearing that are made in our country anymore. Besides shining shoes and cleaning windows, I don't know what occupation one's going to have. And this is the first time somebody stood up and said, look, we need to have something made in our country. A job's a job, and it gives people self-respect and dignity. And I don't care who you are or what you are.
Rick says he hopes Trump secures a Republican nomination soon so that he can start focusing on the general election. For OrlandoSentinel.com, I'm Kayla O'Brien. So that was Rick. And I actually found him through Steve Lemongello. He kind of gave me the hint that he was a Trump supporter, so I just happened to be driving by, stopped in, and he said, yeah, I'll talk about Donald Trump. I love him. He's my biggest, political idol ever. So
I love the fact that he had to secure the sign too and put with chain on it. That's pretty
yeah,
funny.
He actually showed me while I was there some surveillance video that he had of people trying to take it down and failing. So he's an interesting character, to say the least.
He's definitely has some stories to tell his grandkids down
Oh,
there
yeah,
too. So.
for sure.
Well, let's talk about the next thing you do every week. That would be social media and the campaign.
Oh, yeah, and we have someone we haven't seen in a while. Jeb Bush is back in the social media realm. It's not his, though. This is a satire about his unfortunate candidacy and his campaign. So it's called Jeb Bush, An American Disappointment. It's not actually in production anywhere, but some college students, about a couple dozen of them, got together through the internet and wrote this entire musical based on Hamilton, which is another musical that's been doing very well. So they wrote different song lyrics together. One of them is Please Clap. That was one of his famous lines. That was kind of at the end of his campaign, where he was really trying to get some support but just couldn't. So Steve Lemongello, once again, he wrote a blog post about this on OrlandoSentinel.com. So if you're interested, go check it out there. And as you can't hear the music yet, but I have a very big feeling that someone somewhere is going to produce this, and it's going to be a hit.
And Steve has told me he's really looking forward to writing that story when it
Yeah,
happens.
exactly. It's funny. The lyrics are pretty funny. So, but it's in the beginning stages now. So, check that out once it becomes real. All right, next up is John Kasich. So he is kind of the underdog. We've been talking about that for a long time, that he's kind of sneaking in there with his delegate numbers. And so he posted this on Twitter, and basically it says the GOP has had 10 contested conventions. 7 times the nominee wasn't the delegate leader going in. So that's what he's kind of saying, that he might be the kind of dark horse in this race, at least on the Republican side. 6 of them won in November, including these 2 guys. We got Lincoln and Eisenhower over here. So
I've heard of both of them.
yeah, I've heard of them too. They seem like they're pretty good leaders in my book. So he's saying that he could be one of them. I can almost see his campaign photo right down there. So he's trying to just remind people, and he's not very active on social media compared to the other candidates on both sides.
Right.
But he's saying, don't forget about me. I could be the one in the White House. So, and he might. Who knows? We have a long way to go. All right, this one is probably one of my favorites of the week that I found. This is on Ted Cruz's Twitter page. So he's actually gone out and hired actors to perform in this new ad on his Twitter page. So I'll play it for you. And you might see a familiar face, or at least one that is meant to be a familiar face. So that's a Hillary Clinton actress, and I think she looks like her very much. I think she's got the dramatic makeup. But basically in this skit, they're pretending that they're at Hillary Clinton's headquarters and they're discussing their campaign plans. At the end of it, the only option is Ted Cruz. And how do we stop Ted Cruz? We can't. So that's kind of the message here. So they're talking about Donald Trump and how he's screwing everything up. And it's an interesting, I have never seen this. This is the first time I've seen a scripted performance, especially using other candidates. But Like we've been talking about this whole time, social media is really opening the gates for these more creative outlets. So I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think because the production costs are so low, the
Sure.
sky's the limit, and then you publish it for free.
Exactly. That's a big part. You're publishing it for free. You don't have to buy, this is almost like 2 minutes, over 2 minutes. You don't have to buy that airtime, which would have cost millions of dollars back in the day.
Right.
Just put it on Twitter, it gets shared probably more times than you would have seen it on a national newscast. So
Exactly.
very interesting. If you have time to watch it, it's on his Twitter page. It's got some humor in it, but it's also got a serious message at the end. So interesting choice, I think. All right, this is a Hillary Clinton video that she approves of. So she was on GMA this morning. I was actually watching it live. And they brought out some of the old clips of comedians that made fun of Hillary Clinton or impersonated Hillary Clinton and got her reaction live. So I'll play that now. So she's watching it. And her most recent one is about her taking the subway in New York. And that got millions and millions of views. And hopefully it plays in a second. Let's see. Here it is. And as it goes on, she ends up climbing over the gates and kind of fumbles a little bit. It's very slapstick, and then she ends up taking a taxi. But this is the first time we've seen Hillary Clinton react to these SNL skits. And actually, they said about 6 actresses have impersonated her on SNL since she was the first lady back in the 90s. So over here, and they play some of the clips as we go on. And that's obviously when she was a first lady.
The old Hillary was rigid and awkward.
And you'll see a Bill Clinton actor walk out in the background in a second. So it goes on. So you see all 6, and she has a very lighthearted personality about it. She's kind of, making fun of it and saying, they've actually helped my campaign because the more exposure I get, even though they're making fun of me, I'm still getting people to know my name. And throughout the years, six different comedians have taken their take on her. So
She's been on the national scene for over 25 years now. So,
yeah. So that's helping her because they're not making fun of Kasich, every day. So she's got, and it's funny because her hair has stayed about the same in every clip. So she hasn't updated her hairstyle, which I thought was kind of funny. And there's Amy Poehler. She's one of the most famous. So I thought that was kind of funny. All right, this one's pretty cool too. This is about Bernie Sanders and the Pope. So they have a lot of similar thoughts, and the people at CNN put together this little quiz that you can take, and it shows different quotes from either one. You have to pick. So I figured we could play it because this is a fun thing to do on live TV. Why not? So here's a quote. "Climate change is the single greatest threat facing our planet." Who said it? Bernie Sanders or Pope Francis?
I'm going to guess the Pope on
The
that
Pope?
one.
Okay. You are incorrect,
Oh,
sir.
well,
You
I
lost the
know.
game. It was Bernie Sanders, and he said that on Twitter. So Pope Francis actually said climate change represents one of the principal challenges facing humanity in our day. So they have very similar points. And CNN, I think it's a good idea that they came up with this little game to kind of, show how similar
Sure,
they are. So
sure.
it's fun. And like you said, you always think you know the answer, but you might not. So good job, CNN, for doing that. All right, this is Ted Cruz's Instagram page. Here's a video, and they actually hired a monkey to be in it. So I'll play that so you can see exactly.
It's interesting how much more humor that
Oh,
Cruz
a
has
lot
been
more.
using.
Yeah, I've
too,
seen that a lot.
especially. And because he's viewed as being so incredibly serious,
Oh, exactly. He's trying to lighten up the mood. Oh, let's see. We got the title page.
Must be busy, huh?
Well, I guess the monkeys are running the Instagram, figuring out. Let's see if it'll work. There it is. So he's saying on tax day, which just passed, this is what America's doing, trying to put together all these complicated systems. We don't have to live like this. Ted Cruz will abolish the IRS. So that's one of his big platforms for his campaign. So brought some humor into it. Right around the time everyone is doing their taxes online, I had a lot of problems this year. So it's really hitting home for a lot of people. And, again, scripted. They had to set that up in a studio somewhere, so
Right.
really opening the doors.
Right.
And finally, we have Throwback Thursday to talk about. Here's Donald Trump
Wow,
looking a
look
little
at
bit
that.
younger, as you can see, a little bit more
1988.
fresh. This is on Oprah, and he is discussing, she asked him, would you ever run for president? And he says, flat out, no. However, he says, I will never close the door on that because I am really disappointed with the political system, even back in the 80s. So here's the moment. she's talking to him, and he was a guest on the show because he had just written a book back then. But basically, he's saying that I love my job right now. There's no political ambitions that I'm trying to, do right now. However, I'm upset with the way it's working. So who knows? And here we are, more than 20 years later.
And who put that up? Who was
This
that?
this was on Donald Trump's Twitter, so
Oh,
he
really? So
retweeted it.
that's
Yes.
interesting that he would put it up himself.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly. But he's saying that he would never close the door, and here I am. I didn't close the door. So actually, I think it makes sense a little bit because, if he's not saying that he wanted to be a politician from birth, like he's not. He's the outsider too. He was a businessman for many years. So he's saying, see, I didn't want to be, but here I am because of America, and that's he's really working for the citizens. So. In my opinion, very interesting stuff this week, and I had a lot of fun looking it up because we're
It's
getting
amazing.
more and more creative.
It's getting better and better with every week. Thanks a lot, Kayla. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Okay, and finally, now we're going to look at Scott Maxwell's winners and losers of the week, or winner and loser of the week.
Our winner this week is Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer, and he earns that distinction because he got the Orlando City Council to pass the first reading of an effort to effectively decriminalize the possession of small amounts of marijuana. Now, I'm not saying he's the winner because this ordinance is necessarily a good one, although I personally think it is. This is a way to save taxpayers a lot of money. Why the Dyer is the winner is because he got this thing passed. It only passed by a margin of 4-3 on the City Council, and the motto has traditionally been in Orlando, what Buddy wants, Buddy gets. This time it was close, but he sealed the deal by getting 4-3 on a big issue. So for that reason, Buddy Dyer is this week's winner. Our losers this week, we actually have two. One is Rich Maledecki, the head of the Central Florida Hotel and Lodging Association, and he's the loser for getting booted out of this Friday's State of the County address by Orlando Mayor Teresa Jacobs. Also to Walt Disney World for getting involved in a spat with the mayor. Now, how all this started is both Maledecki and Disney World put out a memo that basically presumed to tell the mayors, both mayors, how they thought the county and city needed to spend $225 million worth of hotel taxes. Well, Mayor Jacobs didn't take too kindly to being told how she needed to spend the public's money in the eyes of these special interests. So she said, no thanks. She booted Maledecki out of the event. He was supposed to be on stage with her. And then Disney actually asked to have, according to Jacobs, its logo pulled from the event. Now, that's a little strange to me, and I have to tell you, if Disney's looking to pick a fight with a mayor and their message is she didn't do what we told her to do, and so we're going to take our name away, well, I think the mayor ends up winning that debate, and Disney ends up looking like, well, you guessed it, the loser. For the Orlando Sentinel, I'm Scott Maxwell.
That's going to do it for Politics Now this week. I'm Mark Skonecki. For more news on politics, go to orlandosentinel.com or pick up the newspaper. Thanks for joining us.